Can you give a specific example of something that you've taken to your team and talk about that?
Yeah, the intentional design is so important. I think you can trust your instincts as a teacher, and most of us would probably do a good job. But once it becomes part of the fabric of your teaching team conversations, there's just a wider benefit there for teachers and students. A good example was the way that we tried to improve access for students to the course readings. So these are often scholarly articles written in jargon and code and really difficult to understand language. And we wanted to find ways for students to be more comfortable engaging with that material, to not feel overwhelmed in accessing that material. So using a UDL strategy of multiple means of representation, we added short excerpts from the readings to our tutorial agendas. And instead of saying this is the easy way out for students, we said, if you're pushed for time this week or you're having difficulty with the reading, you might look at just the excerpt and that'll give you enough to talk about in the tutorials. So it was a good strategy, I think, for students who are workload stressed, or pushed for time. But tutors eventually came back to me and said, do we have to keep referring to the excerpts when we're talking about the readings? And that meant we could have a conversation as a teaching team about why it's important that not every student has the time to sit down and spend 3 to 4 hours reading a scholarly article in a language that's really, really difficult for them to understand. And over the course of the semester, as tutors who are also marking assignments and looking at students' online work, we started to see more and more students referring to the scholarly readings, and they could see the benefit of it. So that's one example where a UDL strategy had a really great effect in helping students not only engage with the scholarly readings, but helping tutors achieve one of the goals in the unit, which is facilitating access to that knowledge.
Was there any resistance to offering an excerpt from colleagues in terms of, this is making it too easy?
Definitely there's a kind of presumption sometimes that you need to read, say, an entire academic article to understand its full importance. And there may be some benefit to that. But in terms of a learning activity where you want students to experience the discussion of academic ideas and concepts, we started to see that just using an excerpt was sometimes a good way for students to engage. Over time, as I said, the tutors and teachers in the unit started to see the benefit of that. Students not only... I don't think students took the easy way out every week in just reading the excerpt. Sometimes the excerpt was a springboard for the student where they then went to read the full article or even looked more at that author's work. And it built their confidence for reading scholarly material. So it worked in terms of helping students engage in a tutorial discussion of a scholarly concept, but it then led to larger learning outcomes for those students as well.
So what I find so interesting listening to is you're so clear about what the learning goal is that then you describe the tools that you're giving your students in order to achieve that goal. The other thing I'm hearing is that the extract is made available to all of your students, not just students who have been identified as needing it, and they're using it in a way that's useful for them to bring them into the readings. You started describing providing the supports for, or the multiple pathways for the readings as through the lens of representation. But you've also talked very much about how this supports student engagement by that emotional connection with the reading, maybe removing some of the pressure or the fear or the anxiety of engaging with a reading that's unfamiliar, and allowing them to feel more confident to take more of a risk and then read the full article. So, you've really sort of covered two of the principles there in that example.
I think action and expression is really important in this for this learning activity as well. So students get several opportunities then to show that they've engaged with a reading. So they can talk about it in a tutorial. We often we ask them to post in the chat comments of a Zoom window or to a Padlet. So there's a few different opportunities for them to show their understanding of that excerpt or the wider reading. But then the readings we select can be used in assignments as well. So there's writing them up in assignments, putting them on discussion boards. The multiple means of representation and engagement are important, but then it follows through into giving students several opportunities to show what they've learned. And for students, I think that means the task is more relevant and it's more authentic in the sense that they know there's a benefit there as well. And over time, that benefit keeps affirming, what you think of as an educator as good behaviour, of going to and preparing for your classes, of engaging with the readings as well.
Yeah. And in UDL terms, we could call that the expert learner, where they're intrinsically motivated to use the tools that are available and to monitor their own learning and to submit their work on time. How has UDL helped you reimagine the design of the information you put onto a Canvas page?
I had always had a fairly organised approach to my Canvas pages, and I like to think about repeatability across the pages. So headings might always be the same size or colour, and the same headings would appear on each page. When we worked through the UDL pilot, we thought of new information that could go onto a page to help students, such as key vocabulary, focus questions, where to next in the unit. And this information just became part of the pattern on those pages. And the UDL pilot project has helped me think differently about how we order the information and what patterns we use to represent it to students. Initially, it felt a little overwhelming to think, I've got to add more information to each Canvas page to support students using the UDL framework. But it actually helped me then, as I worked through the pages, I knew exactly what I was trying to get onto the page and why it was important and why it worked. Two features that we built into each Canvas page as part of the UDL pilot are a learning goal at the top of each page that directs students to the key outcome they need to achieve on the page. I think that builds student motivation because they suddenly have a purpose or an achievement that they can set out to do as they work through one Canvas page. The second thing is a what's next section at the bottom of the page. And for me, this builds relevance for students. It shows the connections from previous material to the current page and to the next page. So students can see the benefit of reading that page, completing those learning activities and knowing what's coming up. And if it feels like extra work, my experience is that it actually makes you more efficient in working through your Canvas pages, because once I could articulate the goal of a page, it meant that I knew what to leave out and put in. And anything that wasn't helping achieve that goal, I didn't need to spend time writing, linking, creating videos for, because it was outside the scope of that particular page. So it helps direct your own, energy as a teacher. Initially, to help engagement with lectures, we created captions for the lectures, and then those captions became scripts. Over time, this is about starting small and then building on your UDL strategies semester to semester. So over the course of 3 semesters, we were able to build those into more elaborate scripts that had links, keywords, and more resources for students to engage with material from the lectures, as well as the PowerPoint slides that would have the script embedded in them as well. So students suddenly, over the course of 3 semesters, had a lecture video, a script, and a PowerPoint slide deck, 3 different ways to access the content and information from a lecture. To me, it feels like building blocks, because in the first semester, I was overwhelmed with moving my lectures online. I was managing video editing software, and the most I could do was to get captions up onto my videos. But still, the video with captions is, in a way, a kind of multiple means of engagement. Students could watch it with or without sound, at 2 times speed, whatever. But the next semester then, I could rework the lecture. I was more familiar with some things, so I wasn't spending so much time video editing. I could write the script out. So the next semester, there's another block, another avenue for students to sort of access that content. And then once I'd done it 3 semesters in a row, we had 3 different ways for students to engage with that lecture. So for me as a teacher, I was updating the lecture each semester, but I suddenly had 3 pathways for students to access that lecture material.